Hello, I'm Zoe Terakes and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Zoe Terakes, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's a bit of an early morning, not early morning, it's 10 a.m. here in Australia. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. It's kind of early for me too, but it's 11 p.m. in the UK. I'm a night owl though, so it's still the middle of the day for me.
Yeah, huge. Okay. How are you doing? You safe over there?
Yeah, I've pretty much just been in my house watching Netflix and making my show, so we're just going to wait for the whole thing to blow over.
Yeah, good up.
I mostly just eat whatever lands in my garden. I'm joking. So you're an amazing actor. Is that what you always aspired to be when you were growing up?
Yes and no. Like, I always loved it and I loved what it represented, but I didn't see anyone that looked like me on TV, so I guess I just thought it wasn't really an option. Like, I just thought that don't be stupid, don't be unrealistic, go behind the camera. And so I thought I would be a director for a long time. And then it kind of, through a series of happy accidents, I fell into it and was like, oh, I can do this. Like, this is what I've always wanted to do, but I've never had the courage to say that I want to because I'm too embarrassed if I can't.
Right.
So it was kind of one big, beautiful accident that led me to do the thing I always wanted to do.
Because you, of course, played Pearl Perarti in Janet King season 3, which amazingly is available to watch in the UK. So if you haven't seen it, it's on STV Play. You can download it. It's available on demand. What was that experience like for you? The show about the abuse your character suffers and also the death of your brother as well and the investigation that follows that. What was that experience like as your first big production?
Yeah, well, it was my first audition ever. And it was my first job ever. And I was so nervous. I didn't know what an audition was. I didn't know what it looked like. And so I had got a call back and everyone was like, what the fuck? And then I did it and I forgot all my lines. The director asked me if I was 16 and the director asked me if I smoked cigarettes. And I didn't know if I was like, do you want me to smoke cigarettes? Because I did, but I didn't, naturally didn't want to get in trouble. And then I got on set and I was so nervous. I didn't talk to anyone for like the first while. I was just shit scared and I kept, looking down the barrel of the camera and doing all those things that you're not supposed to do as an actor. But I made some pretty extraordinary friends who are still extraordinary friends, and that was 5 years ago. Well, 5 years ago. Andrea and Marta and Anita and a lot of beautiful people on that show are still very near and dear. So it set me up pretty well.
Now, in the final scene of the final episode of season 3, you score a goal. Did you do that in your first shot?
Yeah, I played soccer for a long time. So the sport in the show Pearl was meant to be a hockey player. Yeah. And then I was like, listen, I'm hopeless at hockey, but I can play soccer really well. And they're like, great, we'll change it. So they changed it to soccer.
Because, it was a really impressive shot.
Thank you very much. That was the real deal. Thank you.
Sometimes I interview actors that are in a movie or doing a scene and they do something incredible. And it might have taken them like 85 takes to do it or something. So I was just curious.
I know. Well, yeah, you would think like with that took me 1. But then, sometimes walking through a door takes you 85 takes. You just don't know what's going to be difficult and what's not.
It does for me just in real life. I keep getting caught on the handle and the next time I forget as well. I've lost entire days to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You never know.
But you've also appeared in a number of short films. I'll just list some of them. The Craft, Music, Sunburn, Are You Still Watching? Which were your favourites to work on?
Oh, so many for so many different reasons. I just did one, like I finished yesterday, called Right Here. And it's written and directed by my best friend in the world and produced by my other best friend.
I don't remember doing that.
Yeah, sorry. I think that was a different one. It's basically about an older version meeting a younger version of themselves. And it's like a non-binary film just about kind of the whole taste that leaves in your mouth is it feels like a big queer hug. That's what we all kept saying. And it just looks like, I've only seen what we shot on the day, but it looks so beautiful, and there was so much love in it. And we had this 15-year-old non-binary person playing younger me. Their name's Audrey Mason Hyde, and they're just remarkable. And so just also seeing like this tiny non-binary human that's like out in the world killing it was like, I just couldn't look at them without wanting to cry, you know, like it was so beautiful. Yeah, so I think, I haven't seen it yet, but I think that's going to be my favourite probably.
So I love Wentworth, and you, of course, debut in season 8 as Reb Keane. How did you first get involved with the show, and had you previously been watching the past 7 seasons, or did you kind of have to catch up once you got the role?
Yeah, so I heard about the audition, and I was initially way too young for it. They wanted to see me for a different role. But I had just come out as non-binary, and I was like, there's no fucking way I'm not doing this. There's no way. And so I emailed and I asked if I could be seen for it, and they were like, okay, yeah, like you're young, but sure. And I did it, and then I got a call back, and the call back was with Kate, and we had like really, great effortless chemistry, and the age gap didn't seem to be such a thing when we were in the same room together. I think I was also one of the few trans people who were like, in the final kind of countdown of people. And then they took a while and they didn't get back to me for ages. And then I was like, fuck it. I think when you want something bad enough, you just have to shout a little louder about it. And so I wrote an email to the producers of Wentworth and basically just said, like, thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for putting this story on TV. I do believe it's going to save some lives. Here's a little bit about me. Here's why I think this role is important. Here's why I think I would do a fucking killer job at it. And then the next day I got the offer. So it was pretty, I nuzzled my way in there. It didn't go down easy. Yeah. So it wasn't effortless by any means. And once we got on set, it was like, oh, this is absolutely meant to be. But I kind of had a bit of like, did I just force them to give it to me?
So you essentially broke your way into prison.
100%.
Now, Wentworth is, of course, based on the classic 70s and 80s show Prisoner Cell Block H, as it's known in the UK. I used to watch it late at night with my mum.
Really?
When the new ones were on. Yeah. And wow. I don't think I was only a kid when I watched it. But,
yeah.
So were you, obviously, you were born after the show was released. Were you aware of the show, and have you seen much of it?
I mean, I knew about it, obviously, yeah. And it's so big in Australia, and I knew a lot of the characters were heritage characters, but I didn't, it was made clear to us that we didn't really have to watch that show to understand. So I watched Wentworth and caught up on what was going on and got completely addicted with my partner, Kath, who's right here. We both just like kind of fell hard into it. And then, but then it wasn't until, so bad, it was like the publicity day when our characters got announced. And they were like, so Lou and Reb, what does it feel like being heritage characters? And we were like, ooh, it feels good. Like, had no idea that our characters were from Prisoner. And we're just like, yeah, it's amazing. It's so good. It's great. And then I quickly looked on my phone and I actually look like the person who played Reb originally. I was like, it's crazy that we look alike, huh? But I had no idea until that day. It was very embarrassing.
I love that. So have you had the chance to speak to Janet Andrewartha, the original Reb Keane in the show?
I have not. I would love to, but no, alas.
Wentworth has had a trans character before, Maxine, played by Socratis Otto, assist actor. I love that they're bringing more authenticity to the show now. And did you get to speak to Socrates at all? Because obviously your characters didn't cross over. Yeah,
I did. We didn't. No, they didn't. We didn't talk about it a whole lot. I've spoken out on the internet about the fact that 5 or 6, it's been 7 years. I can't remember when Sox was cast, but it's been between 5 and 7 years since that happened. Yeah. And 5 years in trans years, like from 2015 to now, 6 years, is like 3 decades in the amount we've learned, in the amount it's come into public conversation and in the public eye, and the exposure and information we've gained. Like if you asked me 6 years ago, should cis actors be able to play trans roles, I would have been like, what's cis? I don't know what I mean. You know what I mean? Like even just with myself personally, like that journey has been huge. And I think what we know now with the information and the knowledge and the education we've been given from, you know, people like Laverne Cox and Alok Vanderman and you know, disclosure has been a massive part of that as well, that documentary. I think there is no excuse now, because with great knowledge comes great responsibility, and we have the knowledge, and so now it's our responsibility to go, oh, this is not okay now. Do you know what I mean? But then I look at a movie like Boys Don't Cry, because I watched Disclosure and they were talking about Boys Don't Cry, and that was kind of the only film that I felt split the room in that documentary, 50-50. Like some people were like, that movie changed my life. Some people were like, they erased the whole Black story in that film and that's inexcusable. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go and watch it. Kind of went in being like, and it was incredible. Like it's, you know, it's racist at times, and it's transphobic at times, and there's parts that I don't think need to be shown to people anymore. Like we don't need to see trans people be raped and murdered brutally, viscerally, and very visually anymore. But it was one of the most moving movies I've ever seen, and I got the haircut the next day. You know what I mean? Like, so I think we need to look at things in their context as well, and not erase context from art, because context is very important. By
the way, if anyone hasn't seen it, Disclosure is an amazing documentary on Netflix which talks about trans representation in movies and TV over the last 50, 60, 70 years, and how much it's progressed and how much further we still need to go. So really check that out if you can. That wasn't a question. That was just, I was just saying things. Now for the sponsored advert, Netflix. Reb's parents send him away for conversion therapy. I found that incredibly hard to watch. What's that like to film?
It was one of the first things we shot. Like it was like my 3rd day or something. And usually like on set, I'm the kind of person that can do cry scenes and then be like, and have a laugh about it after.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find the joy after that one, like with the strip search scene, the conversion therapy stuff, and the rape scene, obviously. But yeah, particularly the conversion therapy stuff, I just could not find any access to joy. I was like, I think what hit me while we were shooting it in the middle of one of the takes, I was like, oh, this happens. This is not made up. This is not Wentworth being extreme. This is a reality today.
Yeah.
And I just got so upset, because I was like, here I am, like playing this amazing trans role in such an amazing show, pretending to do this when this is a reality for so many people. Like it just smashed my heart. But yeah, usually it doesn't get to me so much. Like it does it in the scene, and then when they call cut, it's like ha ha ha, but not with that. I couldn't see the funny side of that.
It's one of the few times I think I've actually seen it represented on screen. And for anyone that doesn't know, conversion therapy is essentially torture, and it's legal in the UK, and it really shouldn't be. So I'm appreciative that the show shone a light on that.
Yeah, me too. Because I think it's so easy to forget about as well. It's legal in so many states in Australia, and you just forget about it.
Web storyline also deals with hormones, or not having access to them, and trying to save up money for top surgery as well. Were the writers open to feedback and ideas? The show is really respectful to the trans community, I thought, and helping to educate, and fully 3-dimensional character.
Yeah, because there was no trans writers on the show, and so they were rightfully so very open to correction and to new ideas. You know, there were times when I'd go in and say, we don't do this. And then they'd be like, cool, rad, thank you. And there was never any pushback, which was great. But yeah, I remember it's why I think not only having trans people in front of the camera but behind camera is important, in costume, in hair and makeup, in every department, because then I've talked about this in interviews before, the onus is on the trans actor to say, oh, like when we bind, we don't bind with bandages, we wear a binder because it's safer, and I want to show the accuracy of binding so people don't use bandages and crack their ribs because you can break your ribs. And there's just a shorthand that comes between trans people where you don't have to explain what packing is, what tucking is, what binding is, what clocking is. There's things that are just innately understood. But everyone on that show was really, really open to learning and were gracious in their learning and admitted when they made mistakes. Especially the cast, they were really, because a lot of them had no fucking idea what non-binary was before I got there, and by the end I was not being misgendered whatsoever, and that hasn't happened to me on many jobs, so it was pretty extraordinary.
Your character Reb and Lou Kelly are first introduced in a jewelry store heist, and the character goes through a lot in season 8. What were your favourite scenes to film?
It's a good question. I think my favourite scene to watch was the one it's episode 8. Corey Chen directed it, and it's when Reb's just come back from Dr. Miller's, and he's furious because he's fucked his top surgery essentially, and it's the first time we see Reb, like Lou goes to hug him and he fucking pushes her off, and it's the first time I think we see him as a man, not a boy, to give into all that bullshit gross gender stuff, but it's true. He kind of stands on his own 2 feet for the first time and tells Lou what's up, and that was kind of different and exciting and dynamic to film. Really any scene with Kate, to be honest, like it was just heaven, and it was so fun. And there's a scene in I think in a lot of our intimate scenes, there'd always been people around for the first 2 episodes, and it was always in a corridor with, a million people standing around us. And the first time we got to do a scene alone in Lou's cell, it's when Boom has just figured out our money game. I think he's gonna have like 3 or 4. And there's this like orange light coming into the cell. And it was just so intimate and close and beautiful and simple. Because I think in Wentworth, often there's so much plot and chaos going on. It's nice just to be alone in a simple situation with 2 characters. So it's like kind of the simple ones were my favorite as well.
And can you tell me, what is the atmosphere like on set? Because obviously all the actors are having to draw on so many different emotions, from anger to fear to crying to laughter and all these things going on. What is it like on set between takes?
Heaven, like just everything you need it to be. And I think it's like, I feel this in theatre a lot as well. When you're rehearsing a play, the darker the play gets, the lighter the rehearsal room gets. And that was what it was like on Wentworth. I mean, obviously everyone was so respectful. If there was a rape scene or, something really fucking heavy where you don't want to lighten it in between takes and you kind of want to stay in it, everyone was really respectful and beautiful. But like more often than not, it'd be, somebody holding somebody's neck up against a wall and then they call cut and you're like, sorry, and you come straight out of it. Like it's the most I've ever laughed on a job ever. And definitely the most fun I've ever had on a job for such a dark fucking show. It's really just so full of joy. Yeah, and I think it's because of the cast. Like everyone is just like a big kid in that cast. Everyone's just kids, and it feels like being on school camp because you're inside this enclosed space for 12 hours a day. And shit just gets weird in the greatest way, especially in dining room scenes. In dining room scenes, I don't know what happens. The energy just goes, and everyone gets weird. Like we played Truth or Dare while we were shooting. Like we had to eat the gross powdered eggs at one point just for fun. Like it just gets weird. I looked forward to it for that reason.
When the episodes are on, I just watch them every week as they're available. But one of the early seasons, I actually binge watched the entire season in one day, and I almost needed therapy after like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
It was traumatic. I mean, the only good thing is that when there are cliffhangers, I had it resolved immediately, but it's one show.
It's brutal.
Yeah, you need to space it out a bit,
Absolutely.
just recover and think about it, and then go to the next one.
Totally. Yeah, I made the mistake of when I was watching season 7, those last 4 episodes of season 7, I don't understand how anyone sleeps between them. And so I was like, and it was like 2 a.m, and I was like, I have to get to the last one. And I finished season 7, and I was just in my bed at like 3 a.m. now, just howling. I was so sad because of that beautiful scene between Boomer and Liz.
Yeah.
It just broke my heart. But that's the only time I've binged it because it's too full on, like you said.
Another thing I love about the show is that, as awful as some of the characters are, they're all, as I've said, multi-dimensional. So while they're horrible to other people, they're also, you can see the good qualities of them too. And it just makes you more invested in everyone and their fate and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I really love that about the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's even the most villainous of the villains, you have an access point with them.
The actress that plays Mari Winters is also in Janet King, although I think you only pass each other in one scene. So I kind of love that you got to work together again in that.
Yeah, it was so great because Susie's on an Australian show that everyone watched in high school called Pibby Blues. And so I was obsessed with Susie, and then she was in Janet King. But yeah, like you said, we only had one scene crossover, but we really got along, and we were often in the trailer a lot together. And then we got coffee and we hung out outside of work, and we stayed in contact, and we'd have phone calls. And then I was like, Suze, I'm moving on Wentworth. And she was like, get fucked. And so we got to have this like amazing time together. We lived next door to each other in Melbourne when we were shooting. So we'd go to F45 with Radi and hang out every weekend. And all through lockdown, through COVID in Australia, Susie and I went for a walk together every week just around Sydney while we were on break from Wentworth, which is so beautiful. Yeah, she is a special human being.
Yeah, because season 8 and 9, if I understand correctly, were actually filmed back to back, so it was still continuing throughout the pandemic. How was that? How did that work?
So COVID hit while we were, I think we just finished season 8. No, we'd started shooting season 9. And COVID hits, and we were like, fuck. And so we kind of didn't know whether to keep shooting. And then they just said it's safer. We're going to shut down. You can go back to Sydney if you want. You can stay in Melbourne if you want. So Susie, me, and I think Radi chose to stay in Sydney. And then it was just a waiting game. And it was like, a good few months before we all went back to work. So it was kind of strange and stressful and felt like limbo because you didn't have closure from the job, but it did feel so far away. So I think everyone was just so happy to be back at work, to be honest.
Obviously, no spoilers, but is there anything you can tell me about season 9 at all? What to expect? What do you think about it? How does it stand up to the other seasons?
What can I say? It's relentless.
Is that?
And it's fucking brutal. Yeah, relentless, brutal, and I think bigger and bolder than ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that's a satisfying conclusion as well?
Sure. Yeah, you could say that.
Because it's well known it's now going to be the last season, but the show was actually cancelled once before, I think after season 7, and the fans magically brought it back, and it was announced for 20 more episodes. Is there a chance that it could come back, and if your character survives? I mean, any character that's even died has come back sometimes. Jane Ferguson about 97 times, I think now. Is there a chance it could be revived in any form in the future if the prison still exists and there's not a big crater left there?
I think a version of it could live on. I know Joe Porter has said in an interview, perhaps a spin-off, perhaps a this, perhaps a that. I don't know if Wentworth, as we know it, will ever come back. That's not something I'm aware of at this stage, but, you know, never say never. I don't know, they've done it before. But yeah, I reckon a spin-off is more likely, to be honest.
Okay. So would you be willing to come back even if every character is now a ghost and it's Ghost Wentworth?
I would give an arm and a leg. That was the best job of my entire career, and I would do it all again in a heartbeat.
I absolutely love the show, and nothing else compares to it, genuinely. And I've been going on about the show ever since. Hoped for it before it even started because I love the original, and then it exceeded my expectations, and it's just been so good every single episode, and it's highly recommended to anyone watching this if you haven't seen it. Can you tell us what visibility means to you, and have you got any messages for the community?
What does visibility mean to me? I think it means not apologizing when you enter a space. I know that's something I did for a long time, is I felt the need to qualify myself and my transness upon entering a new space or a new set. You know, I think you have to kill the transphobe in you. And that's something that I certainly have been doing and I'm still doing, you know, and not apologizing for being trans or not comparing myself to other trans people and being like, you know, I'm not like the others. Like, just being like, this is who I am. I refuse to say sorry for being who I am in order for you to feel comfortable. Fuck that. Fuck that. If you can't feel comfortable about a trans person being in the room, that's on you. That's not on me. I think authentic visibility is means something, you know, is what we were talking about before, is representation in front of and behind camera and authentic representation. So, you know, it's in Mardi Gras season in Australia right now, you know, me and my partner get pretty hounded by big companies to do stuff for Pride. Recently, I got approached by a vibrator company who were like, hey, we're interested in talking about female sexuality and feeling confident as a woman with masturbation. And I was like, do you know who you're emailing about this? Like, did you Google my name? And Kath has it with a lot of, you know, companies wanting to do work with periods and period undies and period products and degendering periods, degendering masturbation. There's so many things, and rainbow capitalist brands just looking for clout. And I think authentic visibility means authentic representation, means working with brands and companies that are genuinely interested in better lives for trans people and in making this world a safer, better, more comfortable place for trans people. And I think people think we can't tell the difference, but it's very apparent, you know, it's very apparent to us.
It means a lot more of that. They're asking you a different point in the year when they're not trying to get their brand in a parade or something.
Absolutely. You know? Absolutely. That's it.
Trans people aren't just for Trans Christmas.
Absolutely. They're here 365 days in the year, baby, and it's not going anywhere. And I guess to any young trans people, I would just say, doing what you're doing, even if you haven't named it yet to anybody, thinking those thoughts and having the courage to open your brain up enough to entertain the fact that you might be this way or that way, or to allow yourself to be more authentically you, that's a protest in and of itself. And you should be thrilled with yourself, because not many people have that kind of courage, and that's why they're cruel and violent. And in choosing authenticity, you choose love and you choose kindness, and you're making the world better because of it.
Can you tell me a fun fact about you, something we may not know? It can be a hobby, party trick, something like that.
I can do this weird thing with my nose, if you want to see. I used to call it Michael Jackson nose, but that's probably a little bit politically incorrect now, given circumstances. But it's this thing. Ready? It's pretty niche. It's pretty weird. It's pretty fruity. And I'm yet to meet anyone else who can do it.
Very impressed.
Thank you.
I learned to wiggle my ears. I can do this too. I fully believe it.
Huge. You can wiggle. I can't wiggle my ears. That's near impossible.
You can't wiggle your ears yet.
Thank you, Sarah. Yet.
We both have a goal for 2021 now.
Absolutely. What else was I doing?
Right.
We're exchanging
superpowers.
Just wiggle your ears. Thank you. Absolutely. 100%.
Now, you also appeared in 2 episodes of The End, which is available on Sky Atlantic, which deals with things like euthanasia and suicide and stuff like that. Can you tell us about the show for anyone that hasn't seen it?
It is a show about a family that it deals with themes of death. So if you're feeling a bit fragile about death, and fragile and vulnerable and fierce and strong, and women lead it, and then the beautiful Morgan Davies plays a trans guy called Oberon, and I play his love interest for an episode or 2. It was a beautiful job. It was so much fun to film, and Morgan is everything, and I hope he changes the world, and he will, and he has.
I just discovered this yesterday. I've only seen the trailer. You play Abbie in Ellie and Abbie, and Abbie's dead aunt. And there's also Marta Dusseldorp from Janet King's in there as well. It looks like the most fun. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, it was heaven. I just finished a big play and I hadn't done screen in ages, and I've worked with Marta like 40 million times. And I just done a play with her at Multidimensional Company. Anyway, so I was so excited to work with her. I was so excited to work with the director. It's just like a big gay rom-com, and we all shot it for no money. We had 10 days to shoot it.
Oh, wow.
And it just felt like this beautiful labor of love. And I don't think we thought it would be anything special. We just thought like, man, this has been fun. It's been cute. It's been beautiful. What a joy. And then we watched it and I was like, oh my God, like it's like a movie. It's a proper movie. And I think for so long I couldn't pinpoint what was so special about it. And then I was like, oh, it's literally the first of its kind in Australia. We don't have, really, there's not that many in the world, like a lesbian rom-com about 2 girls in high school. Like think about how many rom-coms there are about a boy and a girl in high school. Like there's more than you can count. And I reckon I can count on one hand how many there are in the world. So it's so distinct, and I think the tone of it is really perfect. I think the humor, it toes the line of humor and tragedy in a way that doesn't feel like those queer films that are only focused on trauma. And I don't believe that queer films should only be focused on trauma, because unfortunately that is a part of the queer experience, but it's not the whole queer experience. And I resent anything that paints it out to be the whole queer experience. So it acknowledges that trauma is inherent in queer history and in queer lives, but it also goes, but see, you can have this too. And it makes both available to you. Because when I was young and watching films and TV, I felt I was destined for a life of rape and murder and torture and abuse, and no love and no joy. And so I'm really interested in telling stories about queer and trans joy. And I think that's what that film does really beautifully.
Now, one thing that has come out of lockdown is people are finding more creative ways to reach their audiences. It's a 90s movie that I really love, 10 Things I Hate About You. You're doing a read for it, and it's going to be a live broadcast. How did you get involved with that? Why did you pick that particular movie or that script? And what can you tell us about it?
Well, I'd done a reading of The Breakfast Club for a theatre. This was a separate thing, and I was kind of like, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, are people just going to be bored? We're just reading a script. Like, how, I'd fall asleep. But it was so fun because you kind of get to inhabit it. And then when they were saying it was a queer version of that, and it's 10 Things I Hate About You, I was like, I'm absolutely going to do it. And it's just like the most amazing group of Australian queers. I think it's going to be hot and cute and funny, and who wouldn't want to play gay Patrick? I'm really excited. I just got approached by the producer of it, and I was like, don't be stupid, of course I'm doing it. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm excited.
It sounds like a lot of fun. I've actually tuned into a few table reads that have just been streamed online as well, and it's a really fun way of doing things, and just having new actors reinterpret classic material, and so it sounds like a lot of fun.
In the absence of theatre, I think it's like, that's what I am, a theatre beast, and will go see as many plays a week as possible. And in lockdown, I just was lost without doing it, without seeing it. And so watching, shows that have been recorded and live readings, I watched Streetcar, the National Theatre Live version. Like just having access to some form of it is better than nothing, and so hopefully this can do that for people as well.
Now, speaking of which, in addition to being a phenomenal actor, you're also a really good singer. Have you ever considered releasing music? Have you released music?
No, absolutely not. No, I get very self-conscious about singing. The reason I post it on Instagram is because I'm so terrified of it, and it's the way I challenge that fear. I think is just going, put it out into the world, don't say sorry, shut up, do it. Because I'm terrified of singing in front of people. I've never recorded music, I've never released music, I've never written music. I do a musical, but like there's a play at the end of the year that I think I'm doing. I can't say what it is yet. And there's singing in it. And I was like, okay, cool. I've got 11 months to get singing lessons. Like, it terrifies me. I don't know how anyone does it. And I think it's extraordinary.
Well, you're really good. And I do hope that you do more of it because I enjoyed it.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you.
So now I appreciate you can't mention everything you're working on, but can you give us some idea of what you're working on for the rest of the year and beyond that?
Yeah. 9 Perfect Stews, which is the same team-ish as Big Little Lies, same writer. It's a TV series with Nicole Kidman and Melissa McCarthy and Regina Hall, Bobby Cannavale, Michael Shannon, like just the fucking sickest people in the world. And we shot that in Byron last year, second half of last year. And it was the greatest meeting and working with and loving on those people. I think it's going to be pretty rad. I don't know when it comes out, but we finished shooting. And then I'm doing something overseas that I can't talk about. And I have to keep my big mouth shut about. But yeah, so there's stuff happening, which is exciting.
Good. Well, I very much look forward to learning what those things are. And of course, you're very welcome back on my show to discuss them.
Amazing.
Right?
Thank you very much.
Are there any shows that you love at the moment that you'd love to be a part of, that you just enjoy watching in your spare time?
Yeah, we just, what are we watching? I mean, we've just done I May Destroy You and It's a Sin, which were like, extraordinary, both of them. Last year, I really, really liked Feel Good. Have you seen Feel Good?
Haven't yet.
It's on Netflix. It's Mae Martin. She's Canadian, but I guess it's an English show. I don't know. Lisa Kudrow's in it. It's just about this couple, this queer couple, and Mae Martin, who's a comedian, wrote it and stars in it. I don't know what it was about it. I watched it like 4 times over. And they're making a second season, which I'm really excited about. I can't wait till it comes out. I love anything Ryan Murphy, like Pose, Ratched, American Horror Story, Big Little Lies I loved. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to please. Any of those shows, I'm like, yes, please.
So my final question, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and your fans around the world?
Thank you for watching. Sarah's amazing. And I've had a great time. I hope you've had a great time. And I hope to be back. And I hope you're safe wherever you are and finding some joy and peace amidst the chaos.
Well, Zoe Terakes, I'm a huge fan of yours. Thank you so much for coming on my show today.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great. And thank you for such in-depth, authentic, caring questions. I really appreciate it.
Of course. I love everything you do, and I'm very excited to see what else you're working on. And Wentworth season 9, I have to prepare myself for it. And
yes, you do.
Start a petition for season 10 as soon as
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and leave lots of lovely comments. We'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
Bye.